speaking, fewer than 1% of Americans have participated in these wars, which is crazy, outside of what it's costing us in terms of taxes. And number two, I think that with regard specifically to drones, domestic drones, the argument that you're going to hear is that domestic drones are simply the same thing as the helicopter that followed O.J. Simpson, right? In other words, or the helicopter that you turn on the evening news and, hey, there's a house fire, or somebody's running down the street, he just robbed a bank, and, you know. And there's actually a small amount of truth to that. That this is just the next logical step in that technology. Before there were helicopters, there were airplanes. Before there were airplanes, there were people running around, I don't know, scratch pads or something. But, and so what we need to have in this country, in addition to a serious discussion of the military-industrial complex, which is a somewhat separate issue, and let me just deal with the drone piece, because is we need to have a serious discussion of the Fourth Amendment, what the Fourth Amendment means. And you know, the Fourth Amendment says that we shall be secure in our persons, possessions, papers, and homes. Right? And to me, that means if the police department has to fly a drone to keep track of traffic patterns so that they can make the city safer, so that you know they can identify dangerous intersections or they know where there's accidents, I'm not opposed to that personally. On the other hand, if they're hovering over my neighborhood for 2 weeks to see how often I go in and out of my house, then my privacy has been invaded. And that, I think, is a violation of the Fourth Amendment. And right now, there are no lines. And we need to start defining those lines. We need to start having a conversation about those kinds of things. And God forbid they arm drones domestically, then we've got a whole other discussion to have. So I'm with you. I think this is a serious problem, but I think with regard to the drone issue, that the more that we can bring this up and the more that we can have this discussion, the better, because we have now licensed 30,000 drones in this country domestically. There are already 400 of them in service of police departments around this country, if my numbers are accurate. And sure you know, there's more to come. And my guess is what will happen is there's going to be some sort of awful abuse by drones, or they're going to start falling out of the sky onto people's homes, or somebody's going to figure out how to hack them. I mean, there's going to be some sort of, you know, it'll be like, you know, Newtown. It took Newtown for us to think about gun, you know, stuff. There's going to be something that all of a sudden we're going, holy crap, how did we let that happen? But it would be nice to start the conversation now, and thank you for beginning it. I'm sorry I don't have a clear answer other than that we need to have that conversation. So.
Hi. So before I say anything, I am a member of Progressive Democrats of America, a very active member. But I will say that inside and outside is getting very dangerous here in Los Angeles. The gentleman who spoke before knows whereof he speaks. There's Special Order 1 here in Los Angeles, suspicious activity reports, and the police are following activists, and they are frightening them. I mean, there's a big demonstration on February 17th here, a clean air demonstration. And I'm frightened to go. I want to go. If you step off a curb during a demonstration, the police hit you with a baton and knock you down and arrest you if you've been ordered to stay on the sidewalk. There's total intimidation here in Los Angeles, and you'll find out if you stay here long enough to talk to some people. A meeting was covered by KPFK to discuss this. A whole organization sprung up to stop police spying on activists here in Los Angeles. It's a huge problem. Plus, they're taking away habeas corpus. So if you protest against drones, maybe you're helping the enemy, and they can take you away and put you away for a long time.
I don't disagree. And again, this is, you know, we need to get the parade really, really big. And people need to get it, that these are issues that are going to affect them and they're going to affect their lives. And, you know, it may well be that, for example, when the student loan bubble bursts, and suddenly you've got a lot of young people on the streets going, you know, no, I'm not going to pay, or something like that. I don't know how it's going to play out.
I want to comment on private colleges and what they have to do with the student loan. And
don't get me started on private colleges. But the point is, I think that we're at the edge. We're at the edge of the fourth bubble since Reagan. Reagan created the bubble economy, and we also have this serial destruction of our civil liberties that really began with the Reagan administration in a big way, although it's been part of American history forever. And the only solution, I don't have an easy answer other than activism. I think you standing up and saying what you said and being a member of PD America is one of the very best things we can do. And having stations like KPFK that are talking about it is the best thing we can do.
Well, first of all, I have a very, very painful long commute, and I'm so glad I'll be able to tune into you in the mornings again.
Yeah, thank you.
So, thank you for that. And one of the highlights, I used to love to listen when you'd have Bernie Sanders on. Mm-hmm. So, first question is, will we be hearing Bernie Sanders on your show again?
Yeah, he's Brunch with Bernie is every Friday, and I think if you're playing in the morning, you're playing, so it'll be a day late.
Okay, great.
That next Monday.
And then that segues
it won't be next Monday because yesterday I had a fill-in host, but Bernie will be here next week. Yeah.
Excellent. And I mean, that sort of ties into my next question. We know that he's a true independent, big fan of him. Is there anybody on the horizon? I mean, you know, no disrespect, but you know, we've got a few people that are out there, but they're getting older, they're retiring. We've got a lot of, you know, progressive Democrats retiring. Who do you see on a front that would be maybe a next Bernie Sanders that we have a shot? Because it all boils down to...
Socialism is the only way. But you will not hear it on his show.
I'm a big fan of socialism.
Yeah. I consider myself a Democratic socialist.
I think I started by saying that I call myself a Democratic socialist.
And I do too, and Bernie Sanders does.
Mark Pocan is the guy that you want to... Mark Pocan was just elected to the House of Representatives from Wisconsin. He was a member of the legislature, the state legislature of Wisconsin. He was on my program a year or so ago. He discovered ALEC, the American Legislative Exchange Council, and you know where they get Republican lawmakers and lobbyists in the same room and they write laws together and then they take them and introduce them. And so he said, "Oh, you welcome legislators," and he signed up and he showed up at one of their meetings and he was phoning into our show about what was going on. So they dragged him out, and so then the next year he came back and one of the tobacco companies was doing a cigar party and he snuck in and they dragged him out and he came on the air and now he's in the House of Representatives and he's a young man. He's openly gay. He's in his 40s, I would guess. He's very, very progressive, and he's a member of PD America. I don't know if he's a member or not, but he and I both spoke at a PD America gig in Washington D.C. last week, along with Raul Grijalva, and that's somebody to watch. I think this is a guy who's got a hell of a career ahead of him. Jan Schakowsky is a goddess. Sherrod Brown was just reelected in Ohio, and I think he's in his 50s, in his mid-50s, so he's got a few more treads on him. And so there's, I mean, keep in mind, the Progressive Caucus is almost 100 people. It's one of the largest caucuses in Congress. So
I guess though it's like the independence when you think of Bernie Sanders because he became a true independent, and I think that's what we need to bring the third party into it. Well, and it would be nice to see if some of the strongholds in the progressive movement that we think of as Democrats to move into that independent.
Yeah, don't disagree with you.
The leader that you want.
This gentleman has the last question, then we're going to go to the book signing. I don't want anybody to get strangled by the court.
That would be unfortunate. As Richard Nixon said, that would be wrong.
But if the president does it, it's not illegal.
So after this question, and maybe Tom can field this question, any final thoughts he has, we're going to proceed to the book signing phase of the afternoon. Mr. Hartmann, glad to meet you. My name is John Stevenson. I'm a member of SEIU Local 721. Good. We just had the same thing you were just talking about, a bunch of people downtown, 660 of us, fighting for our rights and our wages and whatnot. So,
may I interrupt you for a moment?
Sure.
When you're doing those kinds of actions, please call into our show. Tell the person who's answering the phones that you're a member of the union. You got an action going on. You want to announce it on the air. We will put you on the air. We
okay, great. So on the coattails of that, I've actually written you about this, about unionization, and I'm all for unions. My dad was a union member, a machinist just like your father was too, worked for Rocketdyne, and I come from a blue-collar working class, and one of the things I wanted to talk about, I know you've had Mary Kay on your show, president of SEIU, before, and so is Randy Rhodes, who's another favorite of mine. The one thing I see with Like, for instance, big banks, they get too big to fail. Well, I'm starting to see that with unions as well, and within our union as well. People that get in charge, and then you start to see some very underhanded things happen, and it's not necessarily in the best interest of the workers. A lot of subletting work. Politicians that get elected that owe favors once they get into city council or something like that, and then all of a sudden you start seeing a lot of these union jobs get subcontracted out. I brought this to your attention in email. I never heard you really speak on it. I was just wondering if there's any way that you could get Mary Kay on your show once again and ask her to talk to some of this stuff, because right now our union is divvied down about $100,000 to support a candidate who's completely against our best interests. And on top of that, he's a Republican.
Oh.
Yeah, but it's not necessarily a bad thing, okay? I mean, I'm not, for or against any one particular party, but, and the last thing I wanted to talk to you about was the fairness doctrine. I was sad to hear that you're not on K-Talk anymore. So now we're hearing you on KPFK. It's not enough. We have Randy Rhodes still, but we need you here in LA.
Thank you. Thank you for your kind words. Let me just speak to the union part, because I'm very pleased to be here on KPFK, and it's I'll leave it at that whole riff at that. I get two kinds of callers who say essentially what you're saying, and I give two kinds of answers, and it's hard sometimes to sort them out, because they're. I'll give you an example. Back maybe 5-6 years ago, I came to Washington, D.C., and I was being given a tour along with a group of talk show hosts. I was the only one who wasn't a right-wing, hardcore, conservative whack job, and they assumed I was, because I was part of this group of talk show hosts. I was being given a tour of one of the think tanks in Washington, D.C. And here's this, we walked through this room. It was filled with cubicles. There were about 30, 40 young people in the cubicles. I'd guess the average age was probably 23. And every single one of them had a computer in front of them, and every single one of them had a Wikipedia. I don't know. They were editing Wikipedia pages. Right. For example, Smoot-Hawley had nothing to do with the Great Depression. You won't find that on Wikipedia. I can't tell you how much conservative bias is snuck in. So there are also conservatives who are paid to call into my show. And very often, in fact more often than not, they call in starting out going, I'm a Democrat, I've been a Democrat my whole life, but I'm really upset with my union. And they start trashing their union. And so I'm assuming you're not one of them. You wouldn't physically be here in the room, because those people are tending to hide behind telephones. But for those people, I basically call them shills and hang up on them, But people who are actually in unions and are thoughtfully seeing exactly what you're describing, and it is happening in some unions.
It's happening everywhere.
The real simple answer to that is that it's kind of this last little fragment of hope. And that is that a union at least is a democratic institution. Unions elect their leadership, not always, I understand. And just like the Democratic Party isn't always small d democratic and all that kind of stuff. But it ain't Walmart. It's not like, the head of the union owns the whole thing. Really, the members own it. And so I would not be at all, I would not discourage union members from taking union action against their own union if they think it's behaving in the wrong way.
No, and that's what we're doing now, but I guess what I'm asking of you is, since you're the one with the big microphone, you have the big voice, is that I would love to see you bring Mary Kay.
To have these conversations.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. That's good advice. Thank you. So, did you want to wrap this up? Or?
Just final thoughts from you, Tom, and we're going to be selling books right back behind where that last row of seats are. I want to thank all of you for coming out, and I want to thank, of course, the LA Press Club. I just want to thank Skylight Books that has a helping hand in this day, and of course I want to thank Thom Hartmann.
Well, thank you. Thank you all for showing up. Hey, Doric!